What's going on, guys? Billy here, and today we're going to be doing an unboxing of and a first flight with the new DJI Air 2S. Now, if that name sounds familiar, it's because this drone builds upon the Mavic Air 2 platform and introduces some great upgrades both inside and out, but DJI just dropped the name Mavic, so you can think of this drone as the DJI Mavic Air 2S. Now, DJI has been kind of shifting their product naming scheme over the past couple of months. We saw this with the release of the OM4. They dropped the name Osmo, so now instead of the Osmo Mobile 4, it's just the OM4. The same thing is true with the Pocket 2. Instead of the Osmo Pocket 2, they dropped the name Osmo again, and we saw the dropping of the name Mavic in the Mini 2. It could have been the Mavic Mini 2, but now it's just the DJI Mini 2, and I've been told that that's just to bring more brand recognition to the name DJI, but it's kind of hard to think that they would just throw the name Mavic out the window because it has such strong ties in the drone community, but I'm sure they know their own company more than I do. So today, again, we're going to be doing an unboxing of this drone, sort of like an unbox therapy style. We're going to do it live. It's still here in, I guess, the shrink wrap. And also we're going to do a first flight of this drone, although I don't think the first flight is going to be necessarily all that long because we already know how the Mavic Air 2 platform flies. I just want to check out some of the upgrades that they've introduced. And we can see two of those upgrades right off of the bat from the picture here on the box. It's the brand new 1-inch sensor in the camera, as well as the new upward obstacle avoidance sensor. So if we take a look on the backside of the box here, we get our first look at what comes with the Air 2S Fly More combo. It's pretty much everything exactly that came with that original, now older Mavic Air 2, like the bag, the extra propellers, the charging hub, the extra batteries. But the one thing I'm very excited for is this newly designed wider range of ND filters that are much better than what was offered with that original Mavic Air 2. All right, so it's finally time to get this drone out of the box and stop babbling along. You know, the one thing I wish DJI would still include in the box with their Fly More combos is the car charger, right? It seems like they've replaced the car charger with the ND filters, and I guess the ND filters are, more of a necessity on day one when you're flying, but the car charger is definitely a nice thing to have. Let's see. Usually I don't do these unboxings live. We're going to try to do this one fairly quick, because I know you guys want to see this drone fly, and I, of course, wanted to fly it. And there's a lot of specs to go over, which will be covered in the full review that is also being released on the same day as this unboxing. But we're just going to go over some of the larger things to know about this drone. So inside of the box, we get the bag, which houses pretty much all of the important components with the drone, and we get some accessories in this box down here. So we'll push this to the side. We'll go straight for the big guns in the box. You know, unboxings are harder than they seem. All right, so we'll now unbag the drone, unzip the drone, and this is like a bigger version of the Mini 2 case, it feels. So we'll go right for the drone. Here is the Air 2S, and because it was built off of that Mavic Air 2 platform, it feels like a Mavic Air 2, right? It's got similar dimensions. It's made of the similar plastic. We've got the same array of sensors on the bottom, on the back, and on the front. We've got the same LEDs around on the arms, the same motors, but we've got some visual changes here, like those two obstacle avoidance sensors on the top of the drone, which kind of make the nose of this drone a little bit more fat than that on the original Mavic Air 2. Now, the upgrade that I'm looking forward to trying most here on the Air 2S, you guys probably could have guessed it, is the new camera system, right? So we'll go ahead, we'll take off the plastic here. We'll take off the gimbal guard, and there is the camera. Definitely is a little bit bigger than that of the camera on the Mavic Air 2. Of course, the sensor is double the size, but it also resembles the same design as the camera found on the Mavic 2 Pro. It's got that same cube shape, but it is noticeably smaller, and that's, of course, a good thing. We've got a smaller airframe, and if we pretty much just took that same camera and slapped it on the Air 2S, yes, it probably would work, but we certainly wouldn't see the same top speed, and the flight time would probably go down. Now, to give you a little bit more information on the camera system here found in the Air 2S. Of course, it's a 1-inch sensor, and with that sensor, we can shoot 20 megapixel photos in a full 3:2 aspect ratio. Thank God. I hate shooting in 4:3 and then cropping down. But in the video department, we can also shoot 5.4K video. That means that right now, this drone can shoot the highest resolution video out of any consumer drone that DJI offers. It can shoot high resolution video than the Mavic 2 Pro. Now, of course, you can shoot 4K video at 60 frames per second, which is, of course, a great thing if you want to go for those higher frame rates. But I don't really want to talk too much else on the camera until I get a chance to use it. Specs are great, but we got to see how it performs. So we can talk about that after we go and we do our first flight, which is coming up here in a couple of minutes after we finish this whole unboxing. So the camera is great, but I want to focus a little bit more on these upward obstacle avoidance sensors, because if you look at them a little bit more closely, they're actually angled forwards just a little bit. They don't face directly upwards, and that's because they actually work when you're flying your drone forwards in conjunction with the other forward obstacle avoidance sensors. So you can see that as the drone pitches forwards, you're still able to use those upward sensors that are now facing forward. When I first saw the photo of this drone on the front of the box, it took my mind for a ride, because I had to try and understand why they'd position these top sensors so close to the front sensors. And then it hit me and I realized that you could also use them as you fly forwards as the drone pitches forward. So this system is far superior than what came on the Mavic 2 Pro with that infrared sensor, and even what's on the Evo 2, because you can use these top sensors on the Air 2S when flying upwards as well as when flying forwards. You see, this is the problem with pulling the drone out first in an unboxing video. It's all that I can talk about for the rest of the video, and everything else in the box gets pushed and rushed at the end. But there's still one more important thing that I want to mention about the Air 2S. It's the transmission system that it uses. It's called O3. It's short for OcuSync 3. So DJI dropped QSync off the end, and now it's just O3. And it boasts some pretty great improvements over OcuSync 2. So for one, we've got an improved range from 10 kilometers to 12 kilometers. So now we've got 7.5 miles of range with the Air 2S. Not that I ever think you're going to use all of that range, but it's nice to know that it's there. Also, we've got a 1080p video downlink. So while we're flying around, we get a 1080p live view from the camera on our mobile device. That's nothing new. That was introduced with OcuSync 2, but it's nice to know that it's here on O3. And also, probably the thing that I'm most excited for is that it features 4 antennas now rather than 2. So with OcuSync 2 in the Mavic 2 Pro, say, we had 2 antennas in these front feet that would then transmit the signal to and from the drone and remote controller. But now in the Air 2S, we've got 4 antennas, and I'm excited to see how that handles when I'm flying at further distances. But also, I'm excited to see how it fares while you're flying closer to you. Are you going to experience less interruptions? Is there going to be less lag? I think overall it's going to be a much more stable connection. Okay, so going over the rest of what's in the box, let's cue the overhead shot here. We'll work our way from the left side of the table over to the right side of the table, and we'll try to get through this as quickly as possible so we can finally get outside and fly this drone for the first time. So starting in the top left corner, we have got the remote controller used to fly the Air 2S, and this is nothing new. We've seen the same remote controller used with the Mavic Air 2 and the Mini 2, but I'm not complaining because I really like this remote controller. It's nice and comfortable for long flights during the day, and the battery life is pretty good, and of course, it's portable, easy to throw inside of the bag. Moving down, we've got some necessary paperwork. We've also got some extra sticks for the remote controller. We've got an adapter so that you can charge devices off of your batteries. Speaking of batteries, the Fly More combo comes with 2 extra batteries, and these are Mavic Air 2 batteries. So if you've got a Mavic Air 2 and you upgrade here to the Air 2S, you can use your old Mavic Air 2 batteries with this drone. In fact, fun Easter egg, right on the back, these batteries still say Mavic Air 2, even though DJI has axed the name Mavic. Now moving down, we've got some extra cords. We've also got the charging hub for those extra batteries, as well as the power brick to charge those batteries. Of course, we already looked at the drone itself. Above that drone is a pile of extra propellers, and probably my favorite part are these ND filters, which come in this nice case. And when we open them, we actually have a usable range of ND filters here with the ND4, ND8, ND16, and ND32 filters, whereas the filter set that came with that Mavic Air 2 was the ND16, ND64, and ND256 filters. Those are just way too dark in my opinion, so these that come here with the Air 2S are totally usable for everyday filming. Okay, so that's everything that you need to know about what comes in the box. Now let's get outside and finally fly the Air 2S. So it kind of feels silly to do a first flight of the Air 2S because we already did our first flight of the Mavic Air 2 around this time last year when that drone dropped, and it's the same exact airframe, so this drone should fly the same. But I've got a feeling that this drone, the Air 2S, is actually going to fly a little bit better because DJI always tends to improve their flight software year after year. I remember when the Mini 2 came out and I did my first flight with the Mini 2, it almost felt like it was a better flying drone than my Mavic 2 Pro because it was just newer and the software was newer. So we'll go ahead, put the Air 2S in the air, check complete. All right, pretty quiet. I mean, I would say that it's pretty much just as quiet as the Air 2. All right, so just like all my first flights, We'll take a stroll down the water here. The one thing I have not done is tuned in my gimbal. So you can see how fast my gimbal's moving up and down. That's something I'm gonna have to play with, deaden a little bit, flip into sport mode, fly down the water here. The colors look great. Typically I'm gonna be filming in D-Cinelike, but for this video, I'm leaving the video in auto for the exposure, and I've also got the color just set to normal. So we're cruising right now at about 30-ish miles per hour. The flight time on this drone is a little bit shorter at 31 minutes than the Mavic Air 2. I would assume it's because of the heavier weight. I think we're looking at about 15 or 25 grams heavier because of the extra sensors and the larger camera. But as of right now, we are about 2,000 feet away down the water, and I'm having absolutely no issues with the transmission. And that's to be expected. Remember, we've got O3 in this drone. That's one of the things I'm most excited for. So instead of 2 antennas, we've got 4 antennas, and this now gives us a further range of 12 kilometers, about 7.5 miles. I'm not so worried about the extra range, but the one thing I'm really looking forward to is being able to have a stronger connection with those 4 antennas. So typically we'll fly down to the bridge, stop, take a look at the bridge. Pretty good. 3,000 feet away, still have 5 bars up there in the top right corner. And now let's head back here. So there's a couple of differences here in the fly application because this drone is new and it has newer hardware. So on the right side of the screen here, you'll see it says AF, and that's because if we tap on this, we switch back and forth between autofocus and manual focus. Now, as of right now, I'm not exactly sure how you'd manually focus the camera. There's no slider, but it's there. We see this in some of DJI's more higher end professional drones because typically people will want to have more control over the focus. I don't really know if it matters on a drone because the depth of field is so shallow and you're usually further away from your subject, but it's there if you want it. We're hitting that 42.5 mile an hour top speed. We're almost cranking out 43. We definitely have a favorable wind at our back right now, but the drone is cruising really well. Let's take it around the building a little bit here. Now the drone is behind me, and this is going to give us a good understanding of how the signal holds up. So even though my remote isn't pointed directly towards where the drone is facing, we still have a really good connection here. 5 bars. Look out over Manayunk here to the right. I can't get a feel for how the camera looks right this second because I'm looking at the live view, but you guys are watching this video here in 5.4K. So let me know how you guys enjoy the footage. I'm sure I'll be right there with you enjoying it. All right, let's spin her around here. Come right back overhead. We'll fly low. We'll fly right over our heads, and then we'll go down the train track. So we've got a pretty low sun angle, and that's casting some really harsh and nasty shadows. But I've got to say that, the dynamic range is good. Nice and nimble. It feels just like the Mavic Air 2, but just like I said, the flight software feels a little bit more polished, a little bit more improved. So it feels like this is a better flying drone. It feels more solid. It's going exactly where I want it to. I really love this remote controller that DJI has now made standard across their drones. So this is the same controller as the Mavic Air 2. There's nothing different. Actually, it's the same controller as the Mini 2. There's some slight differences. So we have green buttons on the bottom now, and instead of tripod mode, it says Cinesmooth mode. So there's that if you're interested. Let's get down low near the trains. I know we've got some low hanging wires around here. We definitely want to be careful, but get a little bit lower around the trains. Yeah, those are those wires right there. Let's go under them. We've got a nice, strong transmission system here, and we're still getting absolutely no breakup at all. AirSense communication error. That's going to be something to look at. So this drone does have AirSense. Look, there's a truck. A truck driving on the train tracks. What's up, dude? Cool. Yeah, this drone flies great, and the connection is spot on. So right now we're dropping down to 3 bars, but still we've got low latency, there's no lag, and the image is coming through nice and clean. Nice. This drone flies so great. I want to say that, you know, this could potentially replace your Mavic 2 Pro. Comes in at a price point a little bit under what the Mavic 2 Pro is, right in between the Mavic Air 2 and Mavic 2 Pro, depending upon if you get the drone itself or if you get the Fly More combo. But the one thing you're missing out on is the variable aperture. Also, you don't have the Hasselblad name tied to the camera. So I would say the camera isn't 100% there competing against the Mavic 2 Pro, but it does have its pros, right? Because in this camera, we can shoot 5.4K video, 4K at 60 frames per second, two things we can't do in the Mavic 2 Pro's camera. So I would say if you're a video shooter, this might be the drone to go with. So I definitely need to dial in some of my controls and settings here. It feels a little bit too touchy and too sensitive. Let's fly behind the building over here and do a little orbit of the water tower. Actually, you know what? Rather than an orbit, we'll do a reveal up and over the trees. Yeah, I'll tell you what, this drone just feels so solid flying it. It's a great feeling. You know, I was flying the Evo 2 Pro a little earlier today, and really any company just can't match DJI's flight software. All right, so let's do a nice reveal. We'll get nice and close here. The signal is just perfectly strong. We're dropping down to 4 bars. Nice. Not the best shot, but something to look at. Also, it's in shadow, so the sun is like right there. All right, so something I'm always interested in with a drone is how does the gimbal perform? You know, DJI and really companies in general have come across with their gimbals, they've made vast improvements. So, you know, for example, with the Inspire 2, a relatively older drone, if you made a quick turn, the camera would be like slanted to the side and you'd have to wait for that camera to come back to center. Definitely annoying if you're trying to get a shot. So let's throw it in sport mode. And I'm just gonna whip the camera around. Yeah, that's nice and solid. So there's no swaying in the camera itself. Even if I'm continuously flying in one direction, and then we quickly whip the drone around. A little bit of props in the shot, but other than that, the gimbal is really solid. Let's go ahead and pitch the gimbal to 0 degrees. What's up, bird? We'll pitch it to 0 degrees, fly straight forwards, and that gimbal isn't knocking downwards. Something that really frustrates me with the Mavic 2 Pro is that you don't have that great of a range of motion with the gimbal, but we can even pitch upwards a little bit, fly straight forwards, and that camera isn't knocking downwards. Now, we're not pitched all the way forwards because we are going at about 32 miles an hour, so let's spin it around. The camera didn't fall at all there. Kick down a little bit. Let's see, what are we at? -4. Let's bring it up to 0. It's dead on. Ooh, close call with the bird there. Again, even as we're flying faster at 43 miles an hour, the camera is just flawless. It's not dipping downwards. It doesn't have to compensate for the pitch of the drone. That's really awesome. Even if we pitch the camera upwards, look at that. We're looking 11 degrees upwards, flying at full speed, and the camera isn't knocking down. That's huge. I know that for the average person, they probably only care about the speed of the drone. They care about how long the drone can fly for. You do get a little bit of that prop in the shot, like on the right and left, but we do have a wider field of view with this camera. So it's a 20-degree field of view compared to the Mavic Air 2's 22-degree field of view. All right, so I've got to say that that was a great first flight. I'm definitely glad that we did that first flight because I'm going to kind of bring a little bit closer here. When we do first flights of these drones, I always like to give my first impressions of them. And even though I thought this was going to be so much like the Mavic Air 2, DJI actually did a really good job at making this feel like a brand new experience. Now, this is only my first flight. I'm going to have to do a lot more flying, and I'm going to have to do my full review video of this compared to like the Mavic Air 2 and the Mavic 2 Pro to really see how this fits into their lineup. But for now, it's got my seal of approval. It's a solid drone, as DJI always makes. I'm really looking forward to shoot more with this camera because from what I can see from that live view, it looks nice, crisp, and clear. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to view some of my other Mavic Air or Air 2S videos coming out in the future. I'm going to leave a link down in the description to a playlist. You guys can follow along with that, or make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a video. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, I'll talk to you later. Peace.